Hey, what's up guys, Brad here. So today we're going to be talking about the upcoming ban list that we think is going to be coming around the end of February. Usually is after a KC Cup, and of course we have one right now, which is why the content's a little bit, on the filler side I guess, but still, a ban list is always a fun topic because everyone wants everything hit under the sun, and that never happens. Nowadays we're in a very, I think the meta has a lot of diverse decks in it, which I think is pretty good. But there's definitely some ways that the current decks need to be hit or skills need to be nerfed, that kind of thing. And today, I'm going to do my, I would say predictions, but it's more of a discussion on what I think needs to be hit and what could be hit. So, it's not like I'm saying, oh, this will go to 2, this will go to 1, this will be hit. I'm just saying that this is what I think in each of the top tier decks over on the Duel Links tier list need to have happened to them for them to be hit. And I do apologize for the lighting in the background. It is the UK, we do go from sunny to overcast in a span of 10 seconds, so that's why the scene got a bit dark. I do apologise, but let's dive right in, starting with a look at the current Duel Links tier list. So currently the tier list is sat at Dark Magician and ELEMENTSABER invoked at tier 1, tier 2 is SHIRANUI's Black Wings and Dark Lords, and tier 3 is Cyber Dragon and Ritual Beasts. And I feel like for the most part, Cyber Dragon and Ritual Beasts, they're fine. And we're going to go from the bottom to the top. So we're going to start with like Cyber Dragons first of all. It doesn't need to be touched. It's not that big of a problem. The only thing I don't like about the deck is Cybernetic Overflow, because that is a major pain in the ass, being that you can summon your Cyber Dragon core, have things in hand, you set your Overflow, and then on your next turn or your opponent's turn, they do their setup, and then suddenly they have a board wipe. Because the deck is so good at searching for those cards. It's kind of like Dark Magician with Rod, core is your Rod, and Cyber Dragons have a bit more destructive power than Dark Magician do, I think, in one card at least. And so, if anything, I would like to see Overflow perhaps go to 2, so they have to, be like, do we play Overflow and Treacherous, or do we just play Overflow? Like, that kind of thing, that kind of logic. I think Overflow is the one card in the Cyber Dragon deck that people really don't like, and it's kind of like Treacherous back in the day, when you would win games based on Treacherous, Nowadays, that's not so common, but Overflow, if they have Overflow with a Cyber Dragon player, they win. That's pretty much their game-winning play. Then the next turn, they use Overload Fusion, go into their Chimera Tech attack directly. That's pretty much game for them. So, if anything, Overflow, but do I expect them to hit anything? Not at all. Moving up to tier 2, we have Black Wings. They've done nothing wrong, so I don't see any reason for them to get hit. They're just kind of there. I feel, especially with like the KC Cup ladder, Black Wings are an okay deck, but they're not, that stellar, so cool, keep them as is. Then we have Dark Lords, the deck that never wants to die. It's been around now for I think around 6 or 7, maybe even 8 months coming on that, which is really insane for a deck in Duel Links to survive being hit on the ban list multiple times, despite having Dark Lord Contact semi-limited and the Sanctified Dark Lord as limited. Now, what do we do to make Dark Lords a little bit fairer? Now, maybe you hit their skill compensation, which is a level up skill from both Duel and INVOKER, so if they do hit it, people aren't going to be too mad because they'd have to like grind out for hours to try and get that skill. What compensation does is that it can be used every time your life decreases by 1000, send a top card of your deck to the graveyard and then recover 300 life points. So in Dark Lords, there's cards in Dark Lords that get their effects, they pay 1000 to activate a card in the graveyard. That immediately triggers that skill, puts another card in the graveyard, potentially like a trap card or a spell card to use, or a monster to revive one of the spell cards, and they keep their combo rolling until their board is full, until they have the most optimal play possible. Now, do we do something as simple as maybe putting a higher life point ceiling on that skill? Maybe it's 1500 life points or something, 1800 maybe? Do we do that? Or do we just put a turn cap on it so you can only use these skills say once per turn or twice per turn? At least with the twice per turn cap, there's a limit on what they can do. Now, do most Dark Lord players do more than 2 things in a go? No, but the really skilled ones can do that and will do that, and I've come up against that, and it is kind of obnoxious when it happens to you. So I think Dark Lords, they'll kind of, the deck core stay as it is, and then you'll see that the skill gets nerfed. I think that's the most likely thing to happen right now. If they do decide to go down the line of let's nerf even more, let's just probably hit Desire, or in Eggshell, like one of those 2 super rares. Do we put one of them to 2 or to 1 or something? Like, do we put Desire to 1 so then it conflicts with the Sanctified Dark Lord, even though like Dark Lord Desire is run at 1 off anyway? So do you put them both at 1 to then kind of mitigate the use of Dark Lord Desire? I don't know, but it's an interesting thing because Dark Lords are a deck that, again, in some ways a very free-to-play friendly deck. They're in a mini box and the main box, and the ultra rare card's really good, they won't hit that card, but the super rares, I could definitely see them hitting, and it's going to be an interesting one. This whole ban list upcoming, what could happen, could be really interesting. Then for our final tier 2 deck, a deck that was recently tier 1, but now it's dropped down a bit, SHIRANUI. This has been around a month longer than DM, so it's been around since the beginning of December, I think it was, and it doesn't change how explosive the deck can be. Grass and non-grass variants are seen play, but the main one that people complain about, and the main one that I kind of have an issue with, is the grass variant. And there's a reason grass is banned in the TCG, and I think that SHIRANUI Solitaire had a little bit of a part to play in that, but grass SHIRANUI gives us our first real look at why that card was so broken in the TCG, and even more so now in a 20 card Duel Links context. Sealed Tombs and Spell Specialist are the most commonly used skills regarding that one. We'll talk about Sealed Tombs with the Dark Magician deck, but Spell Specialist and 3 grass, with the shadow buff, I believe it's like an 80% chance to open at least 1 copy, and then there's like a 76% chance, like a 67% chance of opening 2 of them, which is really crazy good. You know, that's nearly guaranteeing you every single game to open with the 1 card you need to start your combos, and obviously get your SHIRANUIs in the graveyard. Then you can banish the Spirit Master Popper card, which really, the whole thing of them being in the graveyard is fine. It's just the card combos you can do with it, especially with something like Burgeoning WHIRLFLAMER, which is a Laval card that is being used inside SHIRANUIs because it doesn't, you know, the good part of its effect doesn't rely on Lavals to actually use it. And so with that, you can banish 2 cards in your graveyard to then add it back to your hand. That then triggers the effects of, say, Spirit Master to pop 1, or of Solitaire Special Summon, or of Squire to then draw 1, discard 1. So it really does help to get off your plays. You can just keep putting the WHIRLFLAME back in the graveyard and keep using it more than once per turn, which is why I either think that WHIRLFLAME will be the one hit, or that Grass will be hit. And Grass is a very free-to-play card in the card trader. I think Grass might have had its time in Duel Links because of Gem Knight FTK that used Grass, I think it was. And now, Grass, do they go right to putting it at 1, or do they put it to 2 to try and like test the waters and see how good it is? I don't know, but I think Grass is a very likely hit on the next ban list, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it. Now, I would be surprised to see some of the other SHIRANUIs hit, you know, some of the monster cards. Maybe you hit like the level 2 tuner to 2 or something, just so they aren't as explosive on their second turn. I'm not too sure whether they do that, but again, that's the fun of a ban list. Like, especially with Duel Links, it's not like the TCG where you have to say, oh, let's just limit this card to 2 and it can sit at 2 or whatever. The whole structure of a Duel Links ban list is so different that it makes predicting things really hard. So again, let me know what you think down below of SHIRANUIs and what you want to see hit on the ban list. If anything, maybe you're a SHIRANUI diehard player and you don't want to see the deck hit at all. Understandable. I'm that way with DM, but let's go to tier 1, which is ELEMENTSABERs and Dark Magician. So ELEMENTSABERs, of course, Invoked have seen hits on the recent lists, but they are still one of the top tier decks in the game, which is crazy. They've been around now for what? It was end of September, so that's going to be nearly 6 months now, which is really, well, I guess, I mean, Duel Links, that's a really, really good lifespan for a deck, honestly. And I think at this point, there's not much left that really can be hit outside of the ultra rares, which are ALEISTER, MOLEUM, and Invocation, which they haven't done just yet. Now, they could, you know, completely change the rules of the game and hit an ultra rare card, it'd be the first time done in history, and then nothing in Duel Links is safe. And at that point, then that's going to raise some talking points among the community because people will probably be really pissed off, but it's understandable. So, do you go down the route of, say, hitting ALEISTER so you can't really search the Invocation that easily? Do you go down the route of hitting MOLEUM? Or do you do something like hit the field spell for ELEMENTSABERs, the Shrine? I'm not too sure what it does, but that seems like the most logical non-ultra rare card left they could hit. Or do you go down the route of hitting Sorcery Conduit, which is a skill that allows them basically to, after taking 1,000 life points, in the next draw phase, you draw a random spellcast, and in your deck you only play ALEISTER, so it's a guaranteed ALEISTER searcher. Do you hit that to make it so that either you need to take more life points so you can't proc it off Cosmic Cyclone, or do you require there to be more monsters in the deck? Like some skills require 3 or 5 monsters with different names in your deck to use. Maybe they go down that route of making it so that you have to have more than just ALEISTER in the deck to make it usable. Maybe they do that and that would kill the skill but wouldn't kill the deck outright, just mean that they don't have as much consistency as they do right now. So that's where I'm thinking with ELEMENTSABERs Invoked. It's going to be interesting again. Now to Dark Magician. The deck in the Duel Links Invitational Influencer Tournament completely was one-sided. It was Dark Magician mirror match, mirror match, mirror match the entire tournament. I think if nothing else that showed Konami how good that deck really is, and if you go first with Dark Magician, you're pretty much going to win the duel, barring some extreme circumstance and you manage to not find your way into a Dark Magician, then you're going to pretty much win the duel. And it's the deck that on the ban list has only been around for 1 month. It was around from December 29th and it's now just February 8th or whatever, so it's been around for just over a month, and already you're seeing how good it can be. You know, you open your board, you play your rod, you search out your circle, circle gets navigation or vice versa, or gets your illusion magic to get your Dark Magician to hand. So there is just a lot of synergy with this deck, and it's so consistently doing what it does and doing it well. And then you of course have the fact that you could just summon out 2 Dark Magicians with navigation, banish one, have your Dark Illusion in hand, special it, banish another. The deck just works so well, and it's not even got things like a Prince Illusion Magician or Magician's Souls in the game yet, so when we get those, it's just going to get better and better and better and better, or Dark Magician the Dragon Knight or Eternal Soul. Like, right now the deck feels like it's peak Dark Magician, but it really isn't. It's just going to get better and better and better over time, if they want to give us that stuff in the game. Now, what do you do to hit Dark Magician and not screw over the people that have, you know, invested all this money and time into getting 3 circle? Either I think you hit the rod, hit rod to 2, or if you really want to kill the deck, hit it to 1. Like, you can play Dark Magician with 3 rod, 2 circle, 3 navigation, because circle is the harder card to get. You can do that, but if you make rod a hard 2 of, then you have to have 3 circles, so encouraging people to go into the box even more to get that card they need. And also it stops them being able to play Treacherous, which in the game right now you either have 2 variants. It's either you play Fiendish Chain or Treacherous, and if you can afford Fiendish Chain, you play Chain. If you can afford Treacherous, then you play Treacherous. Most people should have Treacherous from SR Dream tickets or just from the box in general. It's been around for way too long, and that's kind of how you play the deck. And so it will then force you to play, do you want to play Rod or Treacherous, and you want to play Rod over Treacherous every time, or do you go something like you make Rod to 2 and you make Magician of Dark Illusion to 2, and then you're forced to play even less cards. So it's a tough one. And I think the easiest thing on Dark Magician that you do kind of hit is Sealed Tombs, not because it's just broken in Dark Magician, but because it's been around as it is for a very long time. It stops players from banishing from graveyards or special summoning from the graveyard until the end of the opponent's next turn, so it does kind of lock down your navigation as well. But in the mirror match, it helps against Shiranui. It definitely helps. And so currently it has no cost. Do you may put a -1000 cost to trigger, or it can't be used during your first turn, so you can't just sit there and go, turn 1, play your rod, have your back row with navigation, circle or whatever, then Sealed Tombs them so they can't banish from their graveyard. So if it's something like Shiranui's, then they're completely locked out of a main function of their deck, which is one of the weird things of this skill. And it's something I've seen people kind of bring up a lot, is that this skill, over any in the game, really does screw over a core deck function without having like an alternative way to get around it. Because like, say there's things like Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, which do stop your opponent from banishing from the graveyard. Now that card can be gotten rid of by doing some special summons and then bouncing the card. You can't bounce a skill. And that's the big difference between this skill and a card that can be reacted to. The skill can't. You can't negate the effect of a skill and get that ability off your deck back. So the fact it does, pretty much lock down a certain game mechanic is the biggest talking point, I think, of this skill. And so it is going to be fun to see how they hit it. And again, this wasn't a prediction video, it's just like what I think of each deck in the tier list should be hit on the ban list and how they might go about doing it. But let me know what you think down below. I realise it's now 16 minutes of recording this and it might have gotten a bit rambly towards the end, but definitely was a lot better than the one I did yesterday, which was completely all over the place. At least I had notes for this one. Let me know what you think of the ban list coming in February at some point, what you want to see on it. Maybe there's something I completely missed. Oh, there is actually, no. One deck that's going to come back. This is an actual prediction. Cyber Angels. They return in some form. The limited duel rooms were a test to see what decks could come back at full force, and I think that slowly but surely, Cyber Angels are the one to make their way off the ban list first. If not, maybe Amazonis, because now we're in a meta where special summoning and banishing is so much more commonly used than it was back in the day with Onslaught. Maybe now Onslaught is not that bad of a card for the meta, so yeah. Look forward to the ban list. Again, let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching, I'll see you all in the next Duel Links video. See you then.